So if you have a Kia with the P0017 code, I thought I'd go over what it is, what's going on with this code, and the most common causes and fixes. And so what is this P0017 code? Well, it's a crankshaft position, camshaft position, correlation, bank 1 sensor. And so what does this all mean? Well, basically the engine needs to be timed correctly. There's a timing belt or timing chain that's going around to the top, up at the cam, and then it's going around down to the bottom of the engine, down at the crank. And to time all these, there's what's called timing marks, where basically you line up one and then they're all going to line up. And the engine needs to be timed correctly for it to be working the way it should be. But if one of these gets off, if they get a little bit before or a little bit after, then that's going to cause issues. Sometimes a timing belt or timing chain can slip. So this notch right here would be a little bit before or a little bit after. Also, when these timing belts or timing chains get old, they can become very loose and that can just throw everything off. And that can also cause issues. And to keep track of whether or not these marks are all lining up or not, there's going to be a camshaft position sensor up at the cam, and then there's also going to be a crankshaft position sensor down on the crank. Every single time a piece of metal is directly in front of one of these sensors, it sends out a pulse to the computer, and the computer can do its calculations, and it can know where the camshaft is and where the crankshaft is, and it can tell the timing of the engine this way. But when you get this P0017 code, these sensors are reporting back to the computer that they're not aligning correctly. So basically, there's some kind of issue going on here between the camshaft position sensor that's located up at the top of the engine on the cam and the crankshaft position sensor that's located down on the crankshaft. And so one of the first things to do when you get this code is go check your engine oil. Be sure it's correct. Be sure it's not too low or anything like this. Be sure it's not really super dirty, because this can throw off what's called the variable valve timing, which most modern cars have these days. And basically, engine oil flows through this variable valve timing. It flows through solenoids, which then send oil up to what's called an actuator or a phaser. These phasers or actuators, they're going to be located right up on the cam. And this variable valve timing, it can adjust the timing, which can greatly improve engine performance. But if some kind of issue goes wrong with this variable valve timing, quite often caused by dirty oil, then it can throw everything off. It could cause issues. So the first thing to do is go check your engine oil. Be sure it's good. Be sure it's not really dirty. The next thing that could cause this is that there is some kind of issue going on in the variable valve timing, that one of the components has failed or there's some kind of issue going on there. Usually when the variable valve timing has some kind of issue, it's going to be the solenoid, although sometimes the actuator can also fail, but it is very common for these solenoids to fail, mainly because any kind of dirty oil or anything can clog them up. There's usually going to be an exhaust and an intake one. An intake is going to be A and exhaust is going to be B. So if you find the intake side of your engine, that's going to be the A one, and then the B one is going to be the exhaust side. But the next thing that could cause this is some kind of issue going on in the variable valve timing. And the next thing is going to be is that there is some kind of issue going on with that timing chain or timing belt or the tensioner that holds everything tight. There's some different ways to go about testing this. If that timing chain or timing belt has a lot of miles on it, you can't check to see if it has a lot of slack inside of it. Because when they get really old, they start to get a lot of slack in them. And then when the engine's running, it just throws everything off. And that's a very common cause of this code. But the next thing that could cause this is bad timing chain or timing belt. And the next thing that could cause this is that there's some kind of issue going on with that camshaft position sensor, and it's gone bad, and it's just reporting the bad information back to the computer or something like this. So it's possible that it might be having some kind of problem and it's failed. One thing to keep in mind with these camshaft or crankshaft position sensors is that if they are replaced, sometimes they have what's called a relearn procedure, where basically the computer has to learn the variance that's involved with the new sensor. And there's some different ways to go about doing that, but it's going to depend on the year and the model of the Kia for exactly how you do that. So you might have to do a little bit of research on it. Sometimes you could just drive the vehicle and the computer automatically relearns. Sometimes you need a good scan tool to command the computer to relearn. So sometimes you could just swap it out and it just doesn't matter. But keep in mind that sometimes when you swap those out, you need what's called a relearn procedure or the engine won't run correctly. But the last thing on the list is going to be a bad sensor. And so that's basically it. I just wanted to do a real quick video on a Kia with the P0017 code and a breakdown of what's going on with it and how you can go about fixing it. If I missed anything, please comment down below. If you've run into this problem and you solved it, please comment down below. I'm sure it can help somebody out. But that's basically it.